You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network, an affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Skyler Timmons, and joined here once again on a hot dog hangover because he was celebrating his country's freedom by blowing up a small part of it. It's Evan Lang.
Hey, I didn't blow up anything last night except for my own digestive tract with a bunch of hot dogs.
I was going to say you blew up a toilet.
I did not yet. Still time.
But yes, 4th of July was kind of a low-key one across the state because of all the fires, and definitely hope all the firefighters and everybody being affected by this awful time of year are doing okay, and everything will at some point get all figured out. Sucks. It's the worst time of the year every year is all these wildfires.
Yeah, I was actually legitimately surprised that I didn't really hear that many fireworks going off in my area last night, which means people are hopefully respecting the fireworks bans and not lighting our state on fire anymore. Though, yeah. I don't know if you saw at the fireworks show last night at Coors Field, the field was temporarily on fire. A flaming shell from one of the fireworks fell onto the field.
Oh, goodness. But life goes on. And we're here to talk about the Rockies. Plenty to talk about. We got a ton to try and fit into this episode, Evan. So we'll just try to blaze through as much as we can. Will we get to all of it? But let's start things off, Evan, with something that's super awesome. We didn't even get to talk about it last month much at all. But TJ Rumfield was named the National League Player of the Month for the second month in a row. The Rookie of the Month, second month in a row, something that's never been done in Rockies history, and he just quietly continues to do awesome things. Evan, your reaction to hearing that news about Rumfield again winning that award?
It's really surprising because, one, the Rockies have never had a player win Rookie of the Month twice, dating all the way back to when the award was first instituted in 2001, I think. And that's crazy to think about because the Rockies have had a Rookie of the Year. It was Jason Jennings in 2002. And, Troy Tulowitzki, who should have won Rookie of the Year in 2007, but lost to Ryan Brown. Even then, only won Rookie of the Month once, each of them. So it's really crazy for TJ Rumfield to be out here and really making his mark. He's been one of, if not the best hitting rookies in the league this year. Mm-hmm. Especially in the National League, it's weird to think about. He's not getting as much attention from the media, but it's really nice to see him getting the attention for these awards because that might actually mean that members of the baseball media might take him into account for Rookie of the Year voting for the National League. He currently leads the National League rookies in terms of overall hits, in terms of, the stat tracker keeps bouncing me back to just Rockies rookies. He has the second most doubles, the most triples, the third most home runs. He has the most RBIs of any National League rookie. It's just, he's been fantastic. And it's not particularly close either. And you watch him take these very patient at-bats. He doesn't strike out that much. He's only got 50 strikeouts on the season compared to 34 walks. He's been great. And I think one of the reasons why he might not be getting talked about that much, even though he should be, is because he's a very understated player where he hits home runs. He has the power, especially at Coors Field, but it's more of smart bat placement, good swings, and good at bats. One of his hits the other day, he got the bat head out in front of a pitch that was very low in the zone and drove it out to the outfield for a hit. And he takes these I don't want to jump the gun too early and, proclaim him, that level of great, but he takes Todd Helton-esque at bats, Todd
Yeah.
Helton-esque swings. And really the only thing that I would consider a negative on his game is how slow he is. He's not quick. He is
But
perhaps one of the slowest looking Rockies I've ever seen run the base paths. But
Todd Helton was no speed demon either, even in his younger days.
Helton looked faster than Rumfield does now. Like, I never thought I'd see a player that felt slower running the bases than Nolan, but here we are. And then you also take into account that he's one of the best defensive first basemen in the league right now. I
Mm-hmm.
believe he's second or third in most overall defensive metrics, to the
Yeah.
point where you could consider him a potential Gold Glove candidate if he continues doing what he's doing. And it turned out to be just a really nice move, potentially one of the more impactful, if not most impactful moves this organization has made in a very long time, where they traded Angel Chivier, a young but struggling reliever, to the Yankees for a position of need, which is a pure first baseman. And it's a bummer for Angel because he's been hurt a lot of the season. But when he has pitched, he's done fairly well. But the Rockies didn't really need another young reliever who had been struggling. Chivi gets a change of scenery. Rumfield comes over, and he had been being blocked by, Ben Rice and other players in the Yankees organization, earns the starting job, and, essentially has never looked back.
Yeah. And it's awesome to see. And yeah, he's going to get looked over because you're on the team, one of the worst teams in the worst team in the league overall, record wise.
Not right
And
now. The
yeah,
Kansas City Royals are worse than us right now.
but you know what I mean, though. They're like, well, we're in that realm. They're in the basement. There's the stigma of what the Rockies are, and everything. They don't pay attention. So a lot of the attention's being put on Sal Stewart in Cincinnati. They're like, who is an all-star? And we'll touch on that in a second. No, he's an all-star. He's probably the front runner for rookie of the year, just in the eyes of media trends and how he's advertised across the league. But he's got more of the power. But TJ Rumfield's right there nipping at his heels in pretty much everything, and needs more respect on his name and attention just across the board. And it's awesome to see from TJ, and a lot of confidence in him. Like, hey, great to have him around. He's holding down the fort at first base and making it his own, and and is playing in a way where there's very little questions about his game. Like, he's doing what he's advertised to do, and he just does it day in and day out. No, there's no Michael Toley of, is he going to hit 3 home runs or is he going to strike out 5 times type of thing. It's TJ's going to go up. He's going to give us good at bat. He's going to get on base. He may hit a home run. All kinds of good stuff. So fun stuff. And congratulations to TJ Rumfield, 2-time National League Rookie of the Month, back-to-back, which is awesome. You know who else is a back-to-back individual, Evan? It's Hunter Goodman as an all-star.
Yeah, the obvious choice. I hate to say it. I do think there are multiple Colorado Rockies players who potentially deserving of an all-star nod, but when every team has to have at least one all-star, the obvious choice is Hunter Goodman. Overall the best hitting catcher in the league, right, in the National League right now. One of the league leaders in home runs, playing a very solid game behind the plate, hitting very well. And, in my opinion, he probably should be the starting catcher for the National League, if not for fan voting. And unfortunately, fan voting is always going to, in my opinion, kind of taint the overall starting roster, especially when they make all-star nominations very important in terms of like post-career accolades. But when all of the starters, the vote is in the term of the fans, that's how you get a National League roster that is almost exclusively Atlanta Braves and Los Angeles Dodgers
And Phillies
in that starting lineup. But, Hunter Goodman with 27 home runs and 7 games left to go before the All-Star break. He can very, very likely, I think, make it to 30 before the All-Star break, become the first Rockies hitter to ever hit 30 home runs before the All-Star break. And he's just been great. Very, very well deserved. I can't think of a guy who you would pick over him to be the Rockies lone all-star. Now, if there are like injury replacements or stuff like that, there are other guys worth talking about that could be TJ Rumfield. You could look at as potential all-star. Jake McCarthy, even Mickey Moniak, even though he missed time with injury, has been pretty good when he's been here. And Antonio Senzatela has, fallen off a little bit, but is still one of the better relievers in the National League right now. Guys who may be deserving of a nod if there are injury dropouts or replacements or other stuff like that. But it's a no-brainer that you would pick Hunter Goodman to be the Rockies all-star this year. He is just the second catcher to be an all-star for the Rockies, the first to be a two-time all-star. The only other previous catcher to make an all-star game for the Rockies, of course, all-star game MVP Elias Diaz in 2023.
And then there's also the rumblings and hope that Goodman could get into the home run derby, which they've asked him. He's like, heck yeah, I'll do it. And the other day at Coors Field, took early batting practice with his dad throwing to him. So maybe just preparing just in case, unless an invitation's already been extended. But how do you like the idea of Goodman in the home run derby?
I want him to be in the derby. I think that would be a lot of fun. I love watching him take BP as he just cranks balls out into the outfield, because he hits the ball with authority.
And I'd say, there's the statement of, the derby's going to ruin their swing. Not for the power hitters that are already used to doing. They're already, selling out, trying to hit for the power. So I think Goodman would be a good one. And he'd be the first one since Trevor Story at the Coors Field one?
Yeah, Trevor Story in 2021, who was not an all-star, but did participate in the home run derby.
There you go. Fun stuff.
Yeah, so I also think the move back to a different format for the home run derby is also going to do less damage to people's swings, where it's based on, the swings versus having to be on a timer, where you're not going to necessarily rush mechanics or anything to hit as many home runs as you possibly can. You can take it slow. You can just try and hit as many as possible without messing up too much. I think that'll help a lot as well because it does, like you said, have the stigma of, it's going to mess with their swing. It's going to mess with their ability to hit home runs during the regular season. And I think, with the format change, I think that's going to help a lot.
Mm-hmm. And the only downside is it's on Netflix this year. So
for some reason,
there's another thing you have to buy and fun stuff.
Like how today's Rockies game is on Peacock for some reason.
But yeah, congrats to Goody, and we'll probably talk on Goody a little bit more later in the show. Hint, hint, spoilers. Wink, wink. Moving right along here, let's do a quick wraparound on some injuries, Evan, to close out this first segment. Again, injury bugs continue to hit the Rockies, particularly in the pitching department. Tomoyuki Sugano had a start pushed back because of a fingernail, and he was supposed to start over this weekend against the Giants. He got scratched from that because he was dealing with back spasms. So he was placed on the 15-day IL. They figure it should be a minimal stay. He should be good to go by the end of that, as Evan bunks his head with his bat.
I was hoping you'd ignore that.
I heard the clunk.
Bonk.
But we're putting Evan on the IL on the 7-day injured list with a concussion. But Sugano should be a minimal stay, but you hate to see it from Sugano because he's just been so good throughout this season and just a rock solid in that rotation. Yeah,
he's had 2 or 3 bad starts, including most recently he had a pretty rough start against the Minnesota Twins, but he's still got an ERA under 5, which we take for Rockies starters.
For a guy that's in the bottom part of your rotation anyway.
And it's a bummer because it means that you're not going to have him for pretty much the entire rest of the first half, but the idea is he'll be back and ready to go after the All-Star break, well rested, and it's just one of those things where they don't want to take a risk on him. And we'll talk about it a little bit later when it comes to the trade deadline, but then it gives him a good 2 or 3 more starts after the All-Star break before the deadline if the Rockies do intend to try and deal him, for him to try and show that he's healthy and ready to go.
Yeah. So that should be a quick one. Seth Halverson, this one's one that hurts. Goes down with a shoulder injury. Said he had been dealing with some inflammation in that right shoulder for a while now that's been affecting his stuff. And now finally it's flared up enough where they're going to place him on the shelf for a bit to get that back down. Shoulder inflammation, never something to, always something to worry about. And he had that elbow injury to end last season, has been up and down with the Rockies this year, really finding his spot. But again, to lose another guy to an arm injury of some kind, you just always hate to see it.
Yeah, and for Halverson to say that he's been dealing with this for a while, I think lends a lot of, showing you why he struggled so much this year. He's not been by far like the worst member of the Rockies bullpen, but he's really struggled to throw strikes. He's issued a ton of walks, and him saying that this shoulder inflammation, pardon me, has been really affecting his feel for his pitches, I think explains a lot. And it's one of those ones where when you have a shoulder issue or any sort of arm issue, you have no idea how long they're going to be on the shelf for. And so now you've got a little bit of a yo-yo system with guys in the minors and other guys having to come up and down. Sean Sullivan had to come up for Sagano and pitched yesterday. TJ Shook is now up with Sullivan back down because the Rockies need another reliever. You saw the Rockies activate Jordan Romano, who they signed to a minor league contract back in May. There's just the Rockies pitching is in a rough spot, and it's already pretty bad because they are just stretched so thin that they're in the midst of playing 17 in a row without a day off to end the first half. So there's going to be a ton of bouncing up and down and changing who's doing what and where over the next 6 or 7 or 8 days as the first half of the season draws to a close.
And that's the system you got to have with relievers too, is you got to have guys you can yo-yo back and forth. Just the nature of the game of, oh, this guy had to pitch a lot, we need to send him down so we can have a fresh arm, all kinds of stuff. But hopefully Halverson can get a speedy recovery and get back to what he was before that elbow injury last year, because he can be awesome.
Yeah.
And then moving on, our last little update here, Brenton Doyle, who's been on the injured list for a while with an oblique strain. He had been rehabbing down in Albuquerque, and starting to do some stuff, looking good. And then he's kind of been aggravated like a groin injury that he's been dealing with since down in Albuquerque as well during that rehab stint that he's kind of exacerbated even more. And so they ended his rehab assignment. He's going to stay on the injured list, and he's back with the team. But it sucks for Doyle because just to deal when you're on your way back from another injury and then another injury kind of pops up, like it's terrible.
Yeah, what a rough season for Doyle. He didn't get to play that much and really struggled in what games he did play. He makes a diving catch in center field and gets that oblique contusion, which shut him down for a while. Oblique injuries are tricky, and especially when it involves your range of motion, your ability to throw the ball, your ability to swing the bat. And then for him to finally get that rehab assignment going, only to develop a nagging groin injury, which he's dealt with previously. He has dealt with some groin injuries as well as other general leg injuries, hamstring, quad last year. It's, tough year for Brenton Doyle, who we'll probably talk about a little bit later, has essentially all but lost that starting center field job to Cole Carrig. With the way that Cole Carrig has been playing, I don't see any reason why you would remove him from center field to plug Doyle, who is 4 years older and had been struggling before his injury, back into that spot. It's tough to see. I love Brenton Doyle, and it also hurts because it's one of those ones where if you don't think he's a part of this organization's future now with the emergence of Carrig, you would want him to be able to show off what he's got as potential trade value or to find a new home or anything like that. And he can't even do that right now. And we're probably not going to see him play. I doubt they put him back on a rehab assignment before the All-Star break.
Yeah. Groin things are always they're nagging, like you said, always nagging, but sucks. But in the meantime, it's like you said, you have Carrig. who's holding down the fort, and then you have other outfielders who are doing their thing and playing very well, where it's unfortunately like injury just kind of robs you of the opportunity, where all of a sudden you find yourself on the outskirts because other guys have stepped up into the opportunity, and it's hard to deny those guys opportunities if you want to keep them on your team. So
Yeah.
Injuries, at the end of the day, injuries suck. They suck for everybody.
Your Blaine Krim situation, Krim who had an oblique injury to start spring training and ended up losing any shot of competing for that first base job to TJ Rumfield, and now Blaine Krim is over playing in Korea for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. But interesting stuff. But interesting news across the board for the Rockies, though. Again, congratulations to Rumfield and Goodman on their accolades. Lee, and speedy recovery to those dealing with injury. But Evan, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, another friend of the show has made his major league debut. Talk about that when we come back here on Affected by Altitude. We're back here on Affected by Altitude. Skyler and Evan here with you. And as I alluded to, another friend of the show has finally made it to the show to make his major league debut. That was, of course, one of my favorite interviews and guys that we've talked to. Gabriel Hughes, the Rockies' first overall pick in 2022 out of Gonzaga. Finally made his major league debut this weekend, got the call up, and made his debut on Friday with what ended up being a 3-inning save because he's come up and they're like, hey, he's going to work out of the bullpen. We're like, okay. But just awesome to see Hughes make his debut.
Yeah. Very interesting. According to Sarah Langs of internet fame,
MLB.
I don't think I really need to introduce who she is. I feel like most people know who she is, but she put out a thing that was like, the Rockies from 1993 through 2025 never had a rookie pitcher earn a 3-inning save in their debut, and now they've had 2 this season in Iverson Castellano and now Gabriel Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
I will say the circumstances around Hughes's debut were just a little bit frustrating because he got called up and we kind of had to wait a couple of days. He warmed up in the bullpen a few times for the first 2 games that he had been called up. And then he gets called into the 3-inning save mop-up duty in a blowout against the San Francisco Giants. And it's awesome to see him. But then the very next day, it's the day where Sugano is scratched and we have to call up Sean Sullivan, who has struggled a little bit in his, MLB debut so far. And, you and I were both saying, man, how nice it would have been to have Hughes available to make that start, because Hughes is a starting pitcher. He's always been a starting pitcher. He worked a little bit out of the bullpen in college, but the Rockies drafted him as a starter and even say they intend for him to be a starter, where right now they're taking it slow with him. They're going to use him out of the bullpen and hopefully eventually work him into the rotation. But the goal is inevitably for him to be a member of that rotation. So it would have been nice to have him available, but to have Hughes come out and work those 3 innings, 3 shutout innings, looked very sharp. He had a couple mistakes, but nothing really too crazy that came back to bite him. Gave up a hit, gave up a walk, had his first MLB strikeout, but worked quickly. Overall, pounded the strike zone. His pitches, especially his fastball, looked really good. He was consistently locating that fastball up on the high rail of the strike zone as well, which is exactly what you want to see from him. And it's also, I think you could definitely argue that, we've said it before, the Rockies this year have been very much we will call them up when we think they are ready. And Hughes went like 22 consecutive innings after returning from the injuries list without giving up a run down in the PCL, the most hitter-friendly portion of the minors, basically. And he just went out there and killed it every single night. And, I think I absolutely agree with the organization of he's ready. Get him up here. And I'm excited to see him continue to work in the future. Like you said, one of the best interviews, one of our favorite interviews that we've done. Very, very smart young man. It's great to see. I'm really enjoying the Rockies debuts so far this year. And Gabriel Hughes is number 8.
Yeah. It's fun because, like you said, he looks so good. And No, you watch the interview clips. No, when he got first called up, and they're talking to him in the dugout and whatnot. He's a very thoughtful, he's a very intellectual individual. His parents are doctors. Like, he's a guy who reads philosophy books for fun that we learned about. He's an easy guy to root for. He's a very smart individual, and I keep saying like he has the mental aptitude to be able to succeed at Coors Field. Kind of like Michael Lorenzen in that context of they're very thoughtful about the game and they want to learn how to get better. They think a lot. And Hughes, I think, down in Albuquerque, had that interview with with Thomas Harding, where he talked about like changing his philosophy and mindset of how it comes to pitching. Of okay, it's not I don't need to chase velocity. I need to focus on placing my pitches. I need to have a diverse arsenal and understanding what pitches I need to throw when and where. And so he's really breaking pitching down to its core, and that's going to help him succeed. And I hope that he can get on a more regular schedule, kind of like Chase Dollander did at the early part of the season. Because Chase, no, he really didn't start. His season debut wasn't until a mop up game in Toronto. That was the Rockies had already won the game, and he's just there to close the game out and just get the work in. Hopefully that then can lead into, okay, Hughes is now working maybe behind a starter. He's coming in behind a guy who throws a couple innings. He did that once in Albuquerque this season and was phenomenal after coming in. So hopefully he can get on more regular start, because starting pitchers need that rotation. They need that regular schedule of, I'm going to pitch this day. This is how I'm going to prepare, instead of the frustrating part of he's called up and we don't know when we're going to see him. And he's going to warm up. Oh, he's not coming into the game. He's warming up. Oh, he's not going to come into the game.
Yeah, this is one of those examples that I would say is a good opportunity to use a piggyback system. Very rarely am I like, yeah, you got to piggyback pitchers. But for a guy like Hughes, if you want him to be coming out of the bullpen to start, you still need to make sure that he's getting in there regularly on a consistent schedule and also throwing multiple innings. You don't want him to lose any of his being stretched out. And I think that's why we saw him warm up so many times over the first two games before he made his debut. But then it's exactly like you said, where I think the best thing to do would be have him come in after the starter and pitch 2-3 innings. If Michael Lorenzen goes 5 innings, then have Hughes come in and pitch 3 innings or 2 innings or whatever, as long as he's coming in with regularity and getting multiple innings. Because the big thing for Hughes is you need to build upon that easy confidence he has. He is a very confident pitcher, and you need to give him the ability to remain confident in his stuff and pitch with regularity. And, he's going to continue to learn, and he's in a good environment to do so. He actually, worked with Michael Lorenzen at Big League Camp this year to help develop a sweeper. And, he's used that pitch very effectively so far.
Yeah.
And so Hughes, like you said, exhibits a lot of the behaviors, a lot of the aptitude for a guy who could succeed at Coors Field, because he's willing to learn, willing to adapt, willing to change, but he's still confident in his abilities.
Yeah. It's fun to see, and couldn't be happier for him. Glad to see him break through, because especially when we've seen so many of these other draft picks from the previous regime for the Rockies, so many guys fall off or struggle when they've come up. And so to see Hughes come up, because he's, and all the adversity he faced of the Tommy John surgery and having to come back from that, to then getting health, dealing with a myriad of injuries here and there, and just finally making it to the big leagues, having success in his debut, an awesome debut. Just continue to build on it, because I'd love to see him be a staple in that rotation here in the future, very near future, because he's a good pitcher. Like, there's a lot to like if you follow him and whatnot. So,
and honestly, the Rockies really could use a win from some of those draft classes, where the 2020 and 2021 draft classes, outside of like one or two guys, are looking pretty rough for the Rockies right now, where 2020, basically everything relies on Zach Veen
Mm-hmm.
And Case, I will say really quick, Case Williams, after not pitching in live game action due to a myriad of injuries since 2023, is finally pitching. He is rehabbing officially down in the Arizona Complex League. It is great to see. It's going to take a while for him to build himself back up, but the fact that he is back and is pitching, it's very similar to how I felt when they had Gabriel Hughes go to the Arizona Fall League back in 2024, the end of the 2024 season. He hadn't pitched since 2023 because he had Tommy John surgery, and just to have him come back and be throwing pitches is a huge relief. But it's, we've seen so many of these top draft picks just not work out. Benny Montgomery, for example, recently announced that he has retired from baseball, and that's a shame because we really loved Benny, but the injuries that he had dealt with and just the difficulties in developing, where he just never made it, and that's a bummer. And for a guy like Gabriel Hughes, when you spend a premium draft pick on a starting pitcher, you really want to see that guy succeed. And it's him, it's Chase Dolander, it's are basically the two big name first round starting pitcher choices for the Rockies. And it's been rough because Dolander, he struggled last year and now just had internal brace surgery for his UCL. And for Gabriel Hughes, he had Tommy John. He's dealt with other injuries. So you're really just rooting for these guys' success, not just individually, but organizationally.
Yeah. So especially those really top draft picks, because there's other success like Kyle Karros, what, a 5th round pick. He's doing good, and so there's always gems to find in the draft, but you can't afford to miss with your top picks. And unfortunately, the team has missed on those top picks quite a bit. And part of it's maybe rushing guys up, and now it's just kind of waiting now until a Charlie Condon, a Zach Veen's ready to really take on a full-time role and whatnot. So Hughes is just another, I think, beneficial guy benefiting from just the new philosophy, develop philosophy in the organization. And I hope he finds that regular role. They get him into that rotation sooner rather than later.
Yeah, man, I'm going back and I'm looking at the first pick in the draft for the Rockies going all the way back the last decade, and it's pretty rough. Like the first, going back just the last 10 years to 2016, you've got Riley Pint, dealt with injuries, now retired from baseball. Ryan Valade, who is actually doing pretty well as a kind of bench and utility player for the Tampa Bay Rays, but it's taken him a while to get here. Ryan Rollison didn't work out for the Rockies organization, is now having a pretty fabulous season with the Chicago Cubs, though. Michael Tolia didn't work out for the Rockies. 2020 was Zach Veen, who jury's still out. Benny Montgomery in 2021 retired from baseball. And now we have Gabriel Hughes, Chase Dolander, Charlie Condon, and Ethan Holiday are the last ones. And, those are ones where you got to wait and see. But,
yeah,
yeesh.
Need a win. And that's a perfect segue here, Evan, to want to spend the last little bit of this segment talking about is the draft is coming up. It's this upcoming Saturday, is it not?
I believe you are correct. Saturday the 12th.
So you can catch a bunch of draft coverage over at purplerow.com on that day. But Evan, you're more tapped into the draft and whatnot than I am usually, because I don't really follow college baseball all that much, if at all. So the names and stuff don't ever really stick out to me. But Rockies will have the 10th overall pick, I believe. It's 10th overall pick. And then it's the first pick in each subsequent round. They also have the competitive balance pick and everything. But a lot of needs. It'll be interesting. This will be Paul DePodesta's first draft as head of the Rockies. As president of baseball ops, seeing Josh Burns, this new front office, their first draft for the Rockies. It's going to be interesting. Evan, first overall look, what do you hope to see and get out of the draft for the Rockies? And just what are you hoping to learn and take away from the draft?
Honestly, the biggest thing is going to be seeing what this new front office values in their draft picks. It's really interesting because having the 10th overall pick in this year's first round is the Rockies' opportunity where I think you don't really have anyone specific that you're necessarily going to go after. There are lots of good options. It's very much going to be, in my opinion, best player available in every
Mm-hmm.
position, honestly. But I want to see the Rockies go heavy with pitching, obviously, is I think something that they're going to do. And I also think they need to pick at least a couple of catchers because, as we've talked about before, the catching depth in this organization is pretty bad. Where right now, I just don't see, and I'd love to be proven wrong, but right now, I just don't see anybody in the Rockies farm system right now who could develop into what I would call a starting big league catcher. I've got some guys who could maybe be a good backup catcher. Brian Betancourt, who just got moved up to AAA Albuquerque. But, the Rockies went heavy in the pick 2 or 3 catchers in last year's draft, but it's been a combination of injuries and poor performance. You got Zach Rogacki, who is his season ended, pretty much before it got started, and Will Klein, who just has struggled a lot in Fresno this year. It's a very weak position for the Rockies, but overall, it's really going to be learning what this front office values in individual prospects and who they consider that best available player. Because if I'm the front office, if say the number 3 overall draft prospect per MLB pipeline is Georgia Tech catcher Von Lackey, if he falls to me at 10, I'm ecstatic. He's the best catcher in the draft. He's one of the best catching prospects in the draft right now. He's a very good toolsy player. I like a lot of what he has to offer. He's a big bodied guy. He's got a good hit tool. He's got a good power tool. He's fairly quick. He's got an excellent arm. And, he can play other positions as well. So he's not necessarily locked to catcher. But outside of that, it's kind of the sky's the limit. I do want to say really quick, it's really interesting. There is a guy with the last name of Condon in this year's draft, and he is not related at all to Charlie Condon. And so it's always fun to see, the same names. It's like how the Rockies have a pitcher named Sean Sullivan, and there's another pitcher in the minors right now named Sean Sullivan, exactly the same spelling. Or how we have Zach Veen, ZAC. There was, I believe, Zach Veen in the Twins organization who is ZACH. But
Mm-hmm.
the draft is going to be a big deal this year, not because there's a specific player or a franchise savior or anything like that. Because let's face it, it was 2024 and 2025. Those were big swing drafts where you go for Charlie Condon, and Condon looks great right now. He's been fantastic at AAA Albuquerque. But you look at some of the other guys the Rockies could have had, like Nick Kurtz or Jack Caglione or JJ Weatherholt, a bunch of guys who are already on big league teams and being big difference makers. And Condon hasn't, gotten to the big leagues yet. He'll be here this year. Like there is no beating around the bush with that. Charlie Condon will debut this year. I'd be shocked if he didn't. And then last year, you've got Ethan Holiday, who is now done for the season with injury. It's that foot stress fracture. But this year, especially just in terms of the overall draft, there is no organizational savior. There is no the one guy that you absolutely have to have. It's like I've said, best overall player available at the position that you are picking at, because the overall goal is evaluating what the front office is viewing as important and restocking the farm system. Because we have learned over the last 2 seasons, this farm system is not nearly as deep and not nearly as ready as we thought it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I look at what little mock drafts I do look at. They keep putting outfielders for the Rocky spot, and as someone who follows right, I'm like, man, I don't want more outfielders. I'm with you. I'd like to see pitching and just what values are they looking for in pitchers, and like what the plan for those pitchers are. Are you going to try to go for those college arms that you can accelerate quickly through the system, or get to the big leagues a little quicker to help you out? Because that's what this team needs. Is it's always going to be pitching, and But it's just going to be interesting to see, like you said, what do they value in a player? What is DePodesta and Josh Burns and the other, the other assistant GMs that have been brought in? What does this team value in a prospect now? Because in the past it was, he swing big, make ball go far when he hits it. And then we've seen, that doesn't work. These free swingers, a Jordan Beck, a Michael Tolia, they swing big, but there's a lot of strikeout with it. And it's not what this team needs. It became a pandemic where it's 1 through 9. You had a lot of those guys, and it didn't work out. So how's this team going to reassess just kind of the talent pedigree profile that works through the system? We're going to see more kind of like Sterling Thompson's contact guys and who have defensive versatility. It's going to be interesting to see.
I think for hitters, we're going to see a lot of focus on guys like TJ Rumfield, who the Rockies traded for, of guys who both have a hit tool, but are also far more patient, and they're going to focus on pitch recognition and plate discipline throughout their development versus, they of course want guys who are going to be able to hit home runs, but they want contact to come in between those home runs. And I think a good example of a guy that's, not really fitting in the mold is, your Adel Amador, who, we've talked about before, the organization is clearly cooled on, who has good plate discipline, has good, pitch recognition, but hasn't really found a way in his minor league career to turn that into consistent good contact. And I think that's going to be the combination that they are going to be looking for in their hitters moving forward.
It'll be interesting to see. But like you mentioned, you can find Evan will for sure be covering a lot of the draft coverage this upcoming weekend over at Purple Row.
I already have my spreadsheet ready.
There you go. And we'll probably can do our draft recap spectacular like we did last year. Yeah, we did that last year. That was fun. Evan had a big old thing that he had to break down. But we'll see about that. But yeah, we'll have a recap of all that, run through guys, and just look at all that fun stuff. But again, draft this upcoming Saturday, July 11th.
I'm actually
10th overall pick.
I'm actually really looking forward to this All-Star break for a bunch of different reasons. It's the draft. It's the actual All-Star game. I like the All-Star game. I'm hoping Goody's going to be in the Derby, like we mentioned before. The Futures game, by the way,
it's true,
is going to have Charlie Condon and one of my favorite prospects in the system, Roldy Brito. Very, very excited for the All-Star break this year.
Is a rolled burrito just a taquito?
I mean, a rolled burrito is just a burrito.
It's a burrito.
It's already rolled.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I completely forgot about that. Fun stuff. There's some cool stuff on the horizon with prospects and the draft and all that good stuff. The Rockies continue to try and rebuild until the CBA negotiations ruin everything. But we'll enjoy it in the meantime. But we'll take a break here for our second segment. When we come back, touch on a little bit of trade rumors, and then it's our June Players of the Month. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on Affected by Altitude. Welcome back to Affected by Altitude. Final segment coming your way. It's Evan Lang and me, Skyler Timmons, joined with you. Evan, before we get to our Players of the Month, there's some rumors swirling about as the trade deadline looms less than a month away, where Rockies have a couple of outfielders. They have a surplus of outfielders that we talked about previously, like last week or the week before. Very recently on this show, we've talked about just the outfield problem. Too many mouths to feed. And teams could come knocking on the door, and it's Bob Nightingale of USA Today reporting that the Astros are showing strong interest in Jake McCarthy and Mickey Moniak. And fun to see. I think Moniak seems to be the name that we're all assuming, probably need to trade him. McCarthy has become a little bit more of an interesting name of, do you trade him if you can, or do you hold on to him because he just brings a certain flair to your team that you like so much?
Yeah, I think it's really tough for both of them, honestly, because they're both outfielders, recent acquisitions, Moniak last year, McCarthy this year, who have done very well with their change of scenery. Mickey Moniak, really emerging as a guy both the fans and the clubhouse have really, really liked last year. And Jake McCarthy has been a ton of fun to watch this year. We love him. He's great. He's doing fantastic. The change of scenery from Arizona has really done him well, where he's starting almost every day. He's hitting extraordinarily well. And it's kind of funny and sad because the guy that he got replaced with in Arizona, in Alec Thomas, got DFA'd. He's gone already. But they're also both guys who are a little bit older. They're a little bit deeper into their original, rookie contracts, nearing or in arbitration. And when the Rockies have so many outfielders, you don't really know who you want to be a part of your future and who you don't. They both have their flaws. Mickey Moniak has been pretty terrible against lefties, and his home road splits are a little bit more severe versus, Jake McCarthy has speed and he's been hitting very well, but he doesn't have as much power and his arm is not very good. And I think it's really interesting that the Astros are interested because I would agree that the Astros right now, their outfield group is just not that good.
Yeah, their outfield's terrible.
I was trying to be a little more diplomatic about it, but
we're not an Astros podcast.
Yep, they've just it's been a bad group. They're not really performing at the plate. The defense is fine, but it's the hitting where like very few of these outfielders are hitting, above like 230. They only have one outfielder who's hitting above 230 right now, and that's Taylor Trammell, who is fine. I like Taylor Trammell, but there are definitely guys that the Astros could be seeking in an upgrade. And, it could be Moniak, could be McCarthy. It's a bummer because Brenton Doyle doesn't really get to show off that he could be a good potential trade candidate. But those are the two guys, I think, that we all assume at least one of them is going to get traded. Probably not both, but at least one of them.
Yeah, it all comes down to like what our team's willing to offer. And, the Astros don't exactly have a great farm system, but there's certainly value that I'm sure this team can plug out. Pull out of the Astros system. I just heard my unintended pun, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with some of these guys. But it's fun to hear rumors like that start to like pop up. Because like start of the season, we're like, is McCarthy, like, is he even going to be capable of being traded? Oh no, he's like got plenty of value. He's hitting very well.
Yeah, it's good to see. And one of the reasons why I think the Astros would be a good fit for a trade is while their farm system is not that deep right now, the Astros have been a pitching factory for a few years now, and their top 30 prospect list, and prospects are always a gamble. They're a mystery box. You never know what you're actually going to get. But the Astros have been very good at developing pitchers, and their top 30 prospect list is chock-a-block full of pitching prospects. And some of these guys are relatively close to big league ready, and some of them are not. But there's a lot to choose from. Like, you've got Ethan Pecco down in AAA, who's got some pretty good stuff, who has already had Tommy John surgery and worked his way back from it. There's a lot to like that you could potentially get from that system.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the thing. The Rockies, I think their biggest target in any sort of trade they make is going to be pitching.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But we'll see. But we'll see what other rumors start popping up. But it's fun to just be included.
Yeah. Also, like actual trade rumors instead of like, a Yankees fan site going, well, what if the Rockies gave us all of their best players and we gave them a half-eaten ham sandwich?
What kind of bread?
White.
What kind of ham?
Store brand that comes in the little Tupperware, not Hillshire Farms.
Yeah, I'm good. I'll pass on that.
And it's untoasted, by the way.
That's fine.
Really? Are you not? Does it not matter to you if your bread is toasted or not?
Well, no.
There is. I'm going to show something here. There's a YouTube video that I watch. A guy on YouTube. It's a series called Roll for Sandwich, and he builds a sandwich 3 times a week where every ingredient is determined by a roll of the dice, like in Dungeons and Dragons. And sometimes he comes up with a really great sandwich, and sometimes he comes with an absolutely cursed sandwich. And it's a lot of fun.
Is it the same guy that does the roll for soda?
I don't know, actually, because I'm not familiar with that one.
Does he have a big old beard that he clips his microphone to?
He does not.
Oh. It turns out that they're ripping each other off.
You know, there's actually a few really good sandwich YouTubers. Sandwiches of History is another one that I really like.
Good for them.
It turns out I watch a lot of videos about food.
Yeah. Speaking of food, let's talk about players that ate the month of July or month of June and left no crumbs.
You know, that's also a little food for thought.
Ooh. But yeah, so let us move on to our players of the month, as it's now July. And I think we may both be in agreement on who the player of the month will be. But for the sake of it, Evan, who is your June player of the month hitter?
You know, it's honestly kind of tough because there were a lot of players who played really well in June, all things considered. Like Kyle Karros absolutely caught fire in June. And I think honestly he'd be a front runner for me. He might actually be our overall front runner. He hit 357 in June with an OPS of 1030. He's been great, just taking really good patient at bats. You call him Kyle 3-2 Karros for a reason, where it feels like pretty much every at bat he takes, he's working the count, and he's really starting to look comfortable against big league pitching, which we all thought was coming at some point. Just man, I love Kyle Karros. I think he's proving this year that he wants to be and can be this team's third baseman of the future. He's still very young, and he's really showing that he can still develop.
I'm battling my baseball reference to pull up stats.
Yeah, no, well, now you see, I thought it would be a really straightforward choice, but the Rockies had a pretty good June at the plate. We talked about it last week, but they've been overall one of the better offensive teams this year in terms of on base percentage, in terms of OPS. You know, the home runs aren't quite there outside of Hunter Goodman, who hit 13 home runs for 25 ribbies in June. So I thought I was going to come into this going, yeah, I've got a really clear answer. And now I'm not so sure.
Yeah, because I was assuming like that we would just give it to Hunter Goodman because the 13 home runs, it's the second best month home runs wise in a season in Rockies history, behind Tulowitzki's 15 back in 2010 in September. So he had a phenomenal month, 25 ribbies. Yeah, he hit 250, but he was slugging 680. It's like, it's hard to argue. Guys would be a player of the month for different reasons. So it's like, what criteria do you weigh heavier than others?
Yeah, I mean, you could even say Jake McCarthy is a potential player of the month for June. He also had a really fantastic June. Troy Johnston continues to be just a very good hitter. Defensively, an adventure. Had a misplay at first base last night that was like, yeah, that's why we don't play him at first base that often. TJ Rumfield, your rookie of the month for June. I'm just looking at this list of June hitters, and the fact that one, you got a bunch of guys hitting over 250 is, I think, pretty big. And some of these guys are guys that, you wouldn't necessarily expect it from. Willie Castro had a good June. Eddie Julian had a good June.
Willie Castro has been good every month.
kind of an unsung hero right now on this team where there's a lot of distractions from it. His defense is kind of meh, and sometimes he'll take a pretty bad at bat and you'll go, oh, what are you doing? But the numbers under the hood don't lie that he's having a good season.
Yeah. Eddie Julien had a nice bounce back month
after a terrible May.
Yeah. Sterling Thompson played half of the month, and he did fairly well, had that 2-homer game. Cole Carrig is debuted, and then he played 19 games. He's really been settling into that whole smorgasbord. Brett Sullivan had some fun games. Tyler Freeman continues to do Tyler Freeman things.
Yeah, it makes it hard. And that's part of what makes this season better. We said this at the end of May too, is that we stopped doing this last year because it would have been basically the same player every month. It was, who's the Rockies MVP this year? It's Hunter
Goodman.
Who's the pitcher? Whatever.
They all stunk.
Versus this year, like, the fact that we're having a hard time narrowing it down is fun. And I think at the end of the day, you probably do give it to Hunter Goodman, the all-star, 13 home runs. You know, his average is only 250, but he's still got an on-base percentage over 300. Like you said, slugging damn near 700 with an OPS of 993. Yeah, that's a darn good baseball player right there and a very well-deserving all-star. But like I said, you could make a case for so many of these guys.
Yeah, I was like, we could almost do the cop-out, and everybody that's not Braxton Fulford, Ezekiel Tovar, Mickey Moniak, and Chad Stevens could be hitter of the month.
And Mickey Moniak, we only take off because he barely played.
Yeah.
He only just came back recently. And I feel like if you did a top three, I would probably make it between Goodman, Karros, and Rumfield. And I would say top two, I'd probably go with Rumfield and Goodman just because of the accolades that they have earned for their performances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for me, I go Hunter Goodman. Just, I think of damage. Guy's driving in runs. He's hitting home runs. He gets on base, add in 4 doubles, just doing a lot of damage. And he's able to do that. And he's capitalizing on the guys that are ahead of him in the lineup, getting on base, doing their jobs. Guys behind him are getting on base. But he's the guy that's driving in the runs. He's doing what you're, quote unquote, paying him to do, which is just do damage, drive in runs, and that wins ball games.
And I like winning ball games.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot more fun than losing them.
The fact that we might not lose 100 games, it's going to be close, but it's at least a possibility. Like the fact that the Rockies are only 8 wins away from eclipsing their wins from last year, and last year was really bad.
Mm-hmm.
I like having fun. I like having fun watching the Rockies.
Just for clarity, what are we deciding on? It sounds like we're splitting on this one, maybe.
No, I think overall you do have to give it to Hunter Goodman. It really is just the sheer amount of damage that he is capable of and doing. It's the 13 home runs and the 25 ribbies that I think really set him apart, because for the other guys, their numbers are fantastic and there's no denying that. But the sheer amount of damage that Hunter Goodman can do and is capable of doing every time he steps into that batter's box, you just can't ignore.
Yeah. It's like, I think that's the difference maker, is the damage parts of it. Because if he had 6, 7, 8 home runs, you're like, okay, that's impressive. But Kyle Karros hit 357. He's getting on base. He's scoring runs and all this stuff. He's got 25 hits. And that's a different conversation. So I guess it sounds like Hunter Goodman, but everybody else is behind him by half a point.
Yeah.
If we're doing a scoring system, which is fun.
The overall winner for the month of June is us, the fan, for actually getting to see some pretty good offensive output for a change.
We didn't have the June swoon for the most part.
Yeah. Overall, I think we still walk away from June with a losing record, if I'm correct, but not that bad a one.
Yeah. If the pitching had been better, this is a very good month.
Ugh. Speaking of pitching,
Yeah, let's turn our attention to the June pitcher of the month. A little harder, I would think, just because the pitching has not been good this year. What are we looking at here as we try to round through this one quickly as we're running out of time here?
uh, I think the big takeaway is that most of the pitching in June was really bad, where almost
Mm-hmm.
everybody on the team has an ERA above 5 for the month of June. You have multiple guys with an ERA above 10. You've had a ton of injuries. You've had guys just completely fall off the rails. Juan Mejia, Jaden Hill before he got hurt. Antonio Senzatela actually had a really bad June, all things considered, after looking really good in April and May, where, in my opinion, there's not that many. It's the opposite of the hitters, where there's not that many viable candidates for the month of June. I think our front runner, in my opinion, might be Brennan Bernardino, who had 11 appearances, but only 8 1/3 innings and had an ERA of 3.24.
I think for me, I would offer Ryan Feltner just because well, he was coming. He just barely come back on May 30th. Had a good outing, but made his 5 starts in June, and really it was one of those starts that really inflated his ERA. He had the game against Chicago where he gave up 6 runs in 4 1/3. Otherwise, he had 3 starts. He went 6 innings, allowed 2 runs or less, and then had the one other start where he went 4 2/3 again against Chicago, where he gave up 2 runs on 6 hits over 4 2/3 innings. He did struggle with walks. Kind of battled his command as he was coming back, but was a lot of the time he just looked nearly unhittable or was really strong outings and gave Rockies chances to win those games. They won 3 of those. They won 2 of those games, and he
Yeah.
only took 1 loss. So yeah, like I feel like Ryan Feltner has a really good. It's always hard with the relievers, like because Bernardino, you pitched 8 1/3, like Blas Castano or Victor Vodnik, like they appeared in 5 games, not a lot of innings, so it's hard to gauge that. It's always hard to gauge relievers for these pitcher of the month awards.
Yeah, and I think for Feltner, despite the fact that his ERA is a little higher than it could be, is
It's at
that
4.
it's really that one game, like you said, that inflates it. And he still finishes the month with a 1.19 whip and opposing hitters just hitting 202 against him. Those are pretty good numbers.
Walks are high, but he's got 16 strikeouts. Like strikeouts were a little up and down.
Yeah, the strikeouts are weird because he had that one game where he did not strike out a single batter, and it was weird. But then he came back the next one and had 9 strikeouts. So it's like, okay.
It's a little more inconsistent, and same with the walks where he can get wild, but then he has to his pitch count can get inflated. But then there's times where like he can plow through a lineup and get guys out quickly and get ground outs. But overall, like returning from injury, like solid month.
Yeah, I think I agree with you where I would probably give it to Ryan Feltner. There are some shout outs, especially getting Jimmy Herget and Victor Vodnik back from injury, and both of them have done pretty well overall since returning. And you also had Blas Castano, who's been a very good innings eater, and it's honestly hurt the team to lose him to injury. He has that pectoral strain. And I think any pitcher on this team right now where you can say it legitimately is a loss when you lose them to injury, I think says a lot about how they have done so far. And then, of course, getting Jimmy Herget back has been huge.
Yeah. And perhaps at some point we'll actually starting splitting up pitcher of the month into starter and reliever of the month. But that's a next season problem.
Yeah. But I think this sounds like we're in agreement then that we're going to give it to Mr. Ryan Feltner.
I think he's very deserving. Like a good solid month for old Ryan Feltner.
It's nice to have him back from injury, and he's a guy that we've been rooting for a long time now, and it just always seems like there's something in the way, some kind of injury or the coaching or a mix of the two that's just blocked his progression. And to have him back and pitching fairly well is really nice.
Yeah, very fun. But that'll do it here, I believe, for this edition of Affected by Altitude. Congrats again to Hunter Goodman and Ryan Feltman, our Players of the Month for June. Evan, as we come to the close, where can the folks find you?
Find me on Blue Sky at evanlang27.bsky.social. Love to hear from you. Also catch me over on Purple Row doing odds and ends and bits and bobs and all that stuff like that. Remember that you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop and Affected by Altitude on all of your favorite podcasting platforms of choice: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. If it's got podcasts, you can probably find us on it. If you do, please leave us a comment or a rating or something. Any kind of engagement really does help us sort of spread the show and find more viewers, because we might get recommended to more people. Remember that you can also catch the video version of the show over on youtube.com, as well as find us on most of your favorite social media platforms of choice. On all of those, we are at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop.
And you can find me over on Twitter at Skyler Timmons or on Blue Sky stimmons13.bsky.social, and writing Wednesday rock piles for purplerow.com. Well, this has been a fun episode, Evan. A lot to talk about, and we managed to cover it all mostly.
Yeah, I'm legitimately surprised that, one, we haven't gone that far over, and two, we covered pretty much everything.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the power of friendship. But until next time, this has been Skyler Timmons and Evan Lang here on Affected by Altitude. We'll see you next time. Hit them with it.
Farewell!
This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.